Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we'll be talking about the hotly contested Oregon governor's race. Usually, hotly contested and Oregon aren't generally in the same sentence when we're talking about politics. But in this election, the governor's race is going to be very close, and it's a unique race. There's some unique circumstances. It doesn't necessarily mean that Oregon as a whole is going to be close at the federal level anytime soon. But let's talk about Oregon because this is an important race. It's getting fairly tight, and I think that this is a state with real potential to have a lot of potential. This has a lot of potential outcomes, and I could see a lot of things happening. So let's get right into it here. So in 2020, Biden won Oregon by 16%. This was a pretty good margin considering the fact that Hillary Clinton won it by I think 10.5. So he did quite better than Hillary Clinton in Oregon, and he did this by really running it up in the suburbs of Portland. Again, Multnomah County, which is home to Portland, he did very well, and he got nearly 80% of the vote there. But he did very well in Clackamas, which is a county that Hillary Clinton very narrowly won in 2016. He won it by double digits. Flipped Marion County, held on to these counties up north, and improved in the margins in Tillamook as well as Columbia, which again are suburbs or outer Portland. He also flipped Deschutes County. Deschutes County, again, is home to Bend. It's one of the fastest growing counties in Oregon, very suburban, very left trending. And so, when you take a look at the counties right here, most of these counties moved left. The only areas of Oregon that really stayed stagnant or even moved right were the rural areas out here. But again, they're much smaller. Like if you look at these counties, Trump won 3,500 votes, 7,300 votes, 3,400 votes, 8,100 votes. But then out here, Biden would get hundreds of thousands of votes or 80,000 votes. And so again, the counties out here matter more. And that's why Biden was able to do so well in Oregon compared to Hillary Clinton. So that's why Oregon really shifted to the left in 2020. Again, Biden didn't crack 60. It wasn't necessarily like a landslide victory, but he did win it by a safe margin. It was still a very impressive performance. And, Biden's performance in Oregon, I think, is kind of the realistic, I guess, high point for federal Democrats. Again, there are some Senate races like this year. The Senate race, I think it'll actually be even bigger margin of victory for the Democrats, but that's because Ron Wyden is very popular in Oregon, and he always wins by a lot more. But I think in 2024, 2028, we're going to see similar margins to this. So Biden did quite well in Oregon, and ultimately it mostly came from the suburbs trending to the left. And so you'd think that the national environment might get a little more Republican, but the Dobbs decision kind of neutralizes like any potential massive swings in the suburbs towards the GOP. And in a state like Oregon that's trending left, so it's a left trending state, very educated, ton of suburbs that Republicans need to win over to flip back the state, would be out of reach. And that's what's happening in the Senate race. The Senate race is safe Democratic. There's basically no way the Republicans even come close in that race. But let's talk about the governor's race, because the governor's race, Republicans ahead in the polls, and it's really interesting. So this is, you probably noticed it already, but in case you didn't, look at the bottom of this chart. There is, usually there are two candidates in the polls, right? Democrat, Republican. In Oregon, there are three. There is a Republican, Christine Drawson, who is the speaker or the minority leader of the Oregon House of Representatives. Tina Kotek, who I believe was actually the speaker of the House of Representatives. Drawson was the Senate minority leader. Kotek was the speaker of the House of Representatives for the Democrats. And then Betsy Johnson was a former state senator. She is from the suburbs of Portland, and she has a lot of crossover appeal to both parties. She was a Democrat in the state Senate, but she left the party 2 years ago, and she is now running as an independent for governor. She's a very pro-gun, person. She's most, running a more, I'd say, socially traditional campaign, if that makes sense. Isn't really talking as much about abortion, isn't really talking as much about gay marriage and whatnot, but she's mostly running to kind of counteract, Tina Kotek. And usually this wouldn't really matter because, again, Johnson's running a very bipartisan campaign. She's running a campaign that is not particularly, spoilery on either side. But the issue for Kotek is that draws on her, Johnson's support is mostly coming from the Portland suburbs because that's where her district was from. That's where she's best known. And in addition to that, the current administration in Oregon, the Kate Brown administration, which again is a Democratic administration, is very unpopular. Kate Brown is one of the least popular governors in America, even right now. She has been a historically, not a very popular governor. She hasn't really done well in either of her gubernatorial runs, and her administration has never really been that popular, especially when you remember that she has managed to alienate both the moderate Democrats and a lot of progressive Democrats, and her approval ratings just are not it right now. And that really is kind of similar to a situation we've seen in New Jersey in the past, where the Democrats have been so unpopular they've been run out of power, or Kansas, where the Brownback administration just did so much damage to the GOP's reputation in the state that it elected a Democratic governor in 2018, crossing party lines. And Oregon's a similar thing. Democrats have controlled Oregon for a long time, and party fatigue is a real thing. And in Oregon, it's happening right in front of our very eyes. And so, this is a big deal for the GOP because they can take back Oregon, potentially even the state legislature. Probably not as likely, but with a toss-up governor's race and them being within striking distance of Democrats in the state legislature, that's very, very good for them. So let's talk about this race. So I want to start by looking at the past gubernatorial election. So in 2010, red wave year, Republicans did quite well. They only lost Oregon by about a point or a half, or even here, it was just 22,000 votes that separated the Democrat governor, John Kitzhaber, and Chris Dudley, the Republican. And as you can see, Dudley did very, very well, especially in the Portland suburbs. He won Deschutes County, he won Clackamas County, he won Marion County, all of which voted for Joe Biden, and he a lot of deep red areas that are now more competitive. And so, he won by just a point and a half. In 2014, it was also fairly close. Kitzhaber, he only won by about 6% in this election. And so, again, as you can see here, he did not do well in Deschutes. He did not do well in Tillamook or in Clackamas. And that was really what made him only win by 5%. Again, it was a red wave year in fairness. And again, Oregon has trended to the left since then, but he just did not do well. He didn't even get a majority of the vote, and he was really disliked in the Portland suburbs, as we can see here. Democrats, again, did not do particularly well, and he was not popular. He resigned on February 18th, 2015. And so what happened was we had a special gubernatorial election where Kate Brown, the Democrat, ran against Bud Pierce in 2016. This is, again, election night 2016. And Kate Brown only won by 7%, despite the fact Clinton won by nearly 11%. So, again, it's not like Hillary Clinton did particularly well in Oregon either. But the fact that she underperformed Hillary Clinton in Oregon is just very, very interesting. And again, lost Tillamook County, lost Clackamas County, got, demolished in, Marion County, did very poorly in Medford, and also lost Deschutes, which again is kind of the bellwether of the country. If Deschutes, it's been trending blue, but in 2020 it finally flipped to the Democrats massively. But again, Kate Brown only won by 7% against Bud Pierce, who was not, particularly well funded. It wasn't like he was some, brilliant governor. It's just that, or brilliant candidate. It's just that Kate Brown was not popular in the Democratic administration. Again, was plagued by scandal. Just again, very, very unpopular, especially in the Portland suburbs. So the worst performance, though, and believe me, it gets worse. I know you're looking at a bunch of close gubernatorial elections in Oregon. You're just like, well, usually Oregon's blue. How does it get that bad? Well, in 2018, Kate Brown only won by about 6.4%. This is a deep 9 or 8.6 years. So she ran Oregon. She ran such a bad campaign that Oregon voted 2% to the right of the country. And in 2020, to put it in perspective, voted 12% to the left of the country. So she underperformed fundamentals by 14% against Newt Bueller, who, again, ran as a moderate. He was someone who I think ran a fairly strong campaign. But in 2018, in blue wave year, there was no excuse for this race to have been this close. And Kate Brown, again, lost all of the competitive counties. She got destroyed in Deschutes, did very poorly in Clackamas and Marion, and did not do well in any of the northern counties either. And so, Brown was able to win because it was a blue wave year, and because the Republicans kind of, they gave Bueller a bit of money, but it's not like, he was super well funded the way they funded Scott Walker or Mike DeWine or Ron DeSantis, right? And so this race could have been even closer and it could have even gone red had the Republicans tried a little harder and had the national environment not been so Democratic leaning. And now in 2022, the Republicans have a really good chance, the best chance they've had in a while. Again, Tina Kotek, Christine Drawson, and Betsy Johnson, again, are going to be in a three-way race here. Again, Johnson, I don't really think has a chance of winning. I think her best case is getting like 25% of the vote. But Kotek and Drawson are in a really close race right now. And when you look at the polls, they show pretty good things for Drawson. Again, in these first poll we got back in May, Drawson was up by 2. In this Johnson internal, Kotek was up by 3. But again, Johnson was in second. So it's a partisan poll. Signal, which again, back in the Republican pollster funded directly by the GOP, had Drawson up by 1. But if you look at the more recent nonpartisan polls, in this two-way race from Clout Research, Drawson leads by 6. But in the race where they have all the candidates, Drawson's up by 4, 39%, 35% to 16%. And in Emerson, which is the best poll that's done Oregon in a while, they did it just last week, they have draws on leading Kotek 36%, 34% to 19%. It's really bad for Kotek because, again, if you look at the crossovers of these polls, Drawson's winning 80% of Trump supporters, right? She's basically locked down the Republican base, and I think that they're going to come home for her in the most part. Because, again, Johnson's running not, the most liberal campaign. She's not trying to spoil on either behalf, but her campaign is mostly in the Portland suburbs. And again, the Trumpier parts of Oregon are in the south and in the east. And so that really hurts Tina Kotek because Kotek only but 60% of Biden voters have said they're supporting her. A lot of undecided voters and a lot of them are actually voting for Betsy Johnson because, again, I think that Betsy Johnson can do very well with moderates in Clackamas County, in Marion County, in the outer parts of Portland. And so that really hurts Kodak because that's the base she needs. And so I do think Johnson's going to underperform her polls. Like, she's at 19% here, 16% here. She's at 21% there. She is at 18% there, 19% there. Her average right now on the 538 scale is 19.5%. I think she'll get close to 15 or 16. I want to see where she is in election day, but I think we're going to see a race where Kotek and Drawson do a little better than expected in terms of vote share. Johnson goes down. So let's say Johnson gets 15% of the vote, 85% left. I think that 85% could split 45 to 40 or maybe even 43 to 42, no matter who wins. I do think as of right now, this is a hot take. I do think as of right now, I'm changing my mind that Drawson is actually going to win by about 2%. And I think it's going to be something like 44 to 41, 44 to 42 or something like that, just because Johnson's campaign has really been concentrated in those Democratic-leaning areas. And so, again, she's not even running a liberal campaign. I don't actively think she's trying to spoil, on behalf of Christine Drawson. But what I will say is that when you take a look at the areas where Johnson is most likely to do well, those are votes she's taking away from Democrats and most likely Tina Kotek. And when you combine that with the fact that Kate Brown's administration is horrifically unpopular, combine that with the fact that Christine Drawson's a good candidate, but in the race hasn't really been nationalized. Because, again, if the race were nationalized, it would be harder for Republicans doing because Oregon's a blue state. But in a local race like this, that hasn't really gotten a ton of national attention, becomes much easier for Republicans to win because there's less polarization. And so ultimately, put all those factors together, and I think Tina Kotek narrowly goes down, I'd say, by about 2%. So again, this is going to be a really interesting race. We still have a month to go. I want to see where we end up because we're going to get some new polls, but fascinating stuff out of Oregon. And it's good to talk about Oregon because usually it's just kind of a joke in terms of their politics. Usually, kind of joke about all the Red Eagle politics memes saying it was going to go red in 2020 and that Tucker Carlson would win it, right? And the thing is, Red Eagle might actually be right about this one race. This race I think has a very real chance of going red, and I think it's interesting to talk about. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next one.